I usually start a LibreOffice Base video saying I made a copy of the database I was using in the previous video. But that database has a problem. So I created another database from that database and called that ODB10 Gender Text Varchar. That database can be found on the website. So we're going to show how to add option buttons, also known as radio buttons, twice. Once with the new database I named ODB10 Gender Text Varchar, and once with the ODB10 filter background as the input. I've made a copy of ODB10 Gender Text Varchar, which I downloaded from the website, and renamed this to ODB11 Gender Text Varchar, and opened up the form. I want to add some radio buttons to this form. LibreOffice Base calls these option buttons, but most people are more familiar with the term radio button because they're similar to the buttons you'll see on a radio. Think of the buttons on a car radio. They're all tuned to different stations, and you can select any one. But when you select that one, it changes to the new station. In other words, you can only have one selected at a time. Radio buttons, or option buttons, work the same way. They offer us a choice of options, but we can only choose one of the options. We're going to add some option buttons to this form, and the best field for that would be the gender, because we must choose between either male or female. To add in the radio buttons, I'm going to close the form and open it back up in edit mode. The first thing I'm going to do is hold down Control and click on my gender text box. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit and move it off to the right. We're going to leave this on here for a few minutes to see the field as well as the option buttons. The option button is found in the lower middle part of the form controls. I'm going to click that and add one for our male and one for our female. I'm going to select the one I want to make male first. I'm going to open up the Properties button by right-clicking and clicking Control. Let's move this over to the right. Under the Data tab, we're going to give this a name. We'll call this OPT Male. Give this a label of male. Now we're going to click on the Data tab. We want to change the data field to be gender, and the reference value on we want to make male. Now let's do the same thing with the female option button. Going under gender, renaming this to OPT female, label of female, and we'll see that update when I hit tab or enter. Going into the Data tab, we want the same data source, gender, reference value on to be female. Closing our Properties box. The last thing I want to do is select both our option buttons, right-click, and group these together. Now let's go into Design View and see if they work. We had something selected, so we're not seeing our labels, but if I click outside of the labels, they show up again. So our first one is showing up as male, now female, male, female. So these appear to be working, but as we've seen before, when we add a new button, it puts it to the bottom of our tab value. So let's go back into edit mode or design mode. We can get rid of our gender text box. I'm going to hold down Control and click on the text box, hitting delete. It's gone. Now we want to fix the tab settings by coming down into the activation order. And we see at the bottom our option male and female, and we want to move these up to just under first name. Oops, down one. Clicking OK. Let's review this in Design View. Putting the cursor in last name, hitting tab, we see it goes to first name, to male, and then to start date. It's not going to female. If we click on the next one and we see female, I'm putting the cursor into last name, first name, and then it jumps to female. Then when I click next, it jumps down to start date. Don't go crazy trying to make it tab through your radio button. It's only going to go to one of the values in the radio button group. So let's change one to see how it works. I'm going to change Patricia Anderson to male. We'll save this, go to the next record, and we come back and we see that she's male. Let's make her a female again. Save, next record, previous, and now she's back to female. The rest of the video is going to show what the problem is with the ODB10 filter background and how to fix it. I've made a copy of ODB10 filter background and renamed this to ODB11 radio button. I'm going to go into the tables option in database, and we see that we've got employees as well as forms employees. To make sure we know the difference between which one we're going into, I'm going to rename this one to FRM-employees. I'm also going to rename this other one to FRM Employees Spreadsheet View. And that's so I can tell the difference between my forms and my tables when I'm clicking on the different options. Let's edit our employees table. And we're going to come up to gender. Instead of text fix character, we're going to change this to text varchar. And save. Closing our table. Let's go back into our forms. And let's bring up our form in spreadsheet view. And now we want to look at just the males in the table. So I'm going to click on my auto filter. We want to change all these fields because when I click on it, let me zoom in a little, we can see that we've got male space space because when we had that fixed character, it added in those two spaces. When we have a field as varchar, it removes those extra spaces at the end when we edit it, when we add that field. But since we converted this one from fixed, it didn't reformat all these values. So we're going to have to reformat them ourselves. Unfortunately, we don't know enough about queries to do that yet, so we're going to have to do this all by hand. What I'm going to do is on this first one, I'm going to delete off the extra spaces, then select the 4 characters we do want. I'm going to hold down Control and hit C for copy. Then I'm going to hit my arrow down button and hold down Control and V for paste. Arrow down, Control V, arrow down, Control V. And do that all the way down. Now when I click up, we see that they're all 4-character male. And I know some of you are probably thinking, but what if we put in quotes and had 2 spaces on the end of our option button? It didn't work. I tried it. Maybe you can get it to work, and if you can, please add it in the notes under the video. But I had trouble getting a fixed character to work with the option buttons. So we're going to close this form. We didn't do any updates to it, so we don't need to save anything. It already saved the data into our table. Let's come down to Form Employees, right-click, Edit, and we're going to do just what we did earlier in the video. I'm going to hold down Control, click on the Gender tab, but this time I'm going to delete it right away. Going to click on our Option button, add that, add another one, select the one on the left, click on the Control button to open up our Properties box. First one's going to be OPT Male. And male for our label. Gender. Reference value on. Male. Going back to our general tab. OPT female. Label is female. Data gender. Reference value on. Female. Closing the properties box. Selecting our two option buttons. Grouping them together. I'm going to use my arrow key to move them up a little bit. We're also going to change the tab order right away. Selecting these two, moving this up. Clicking OK. Now let's go into Design View. And we had something selected. To get rid of this, I'm going to click off all our buttons. And we see that it's working. On our navigation bar, we have this thing called Data Source as Table. If I click that, up at the top, it shows us our data source. This is another way we can check the data and see if it's updated properly. We're at Patricia Anderson. We see her right here. And I'm going to change her to male. Clicking that, we see under gender, it's changed already to male. I didn't even have to click on the Save Record. Changing her back to female, we'll watch this change. And we see that it's updated. So our data source shows us the table that we're pulling that data from. Let's close that. And we have our option buttons working for our ODB11 radio button. I'm going to save this form. Close our form. And it's asking us if we want to save our changes. We did make a change to this form, so I want to say yes. I'm going to save the database, and we're done.